This is the Chicken Yogi Show, hosted by the Chicken Yogi, Kit Kilstow. Kit creates neurodivergent and chronic illness liberation through a devotion to radical free-range wellness. Look for wellness as unique as you are and find your own path with the Chicken Yogi way. Learn more and receive a free gift when you subscribe to their newsletter at chickenyogi.com. And now, today's show. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Chicken Yogi Show. I am Kit Kilstow, the Chicken Yogi, and this week I just want to kind of touch base and catch you all up on where I have been and kind of the direction that the Chicken Yogi is going in. If you followed the podcast for any length of time, you'll notice there's been a big break between my last episode and this one. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of which is simply dealing with being a full-time college student while working full-time and, dealing with taking care of myself and the homestead and all the animals on the homestead and all that good stuff. But the other part is that I wanted to reconfigure and reconsider the work that I'm doing as the Chicken Yogi. I have talked a lot about what I call the big burnout that happened pretty much from the summer and fall of 2021 and lasted pretty much until about the fall of last year. And I started, realizing I was coming out of it and I was dealing with things. Well, then I kind of felt myself go back into that burnout phase. And so I wanted to step back and take some time to reconsider. But the other thing is, the more that I lean into my authentic self, the more that I understand what it means to be a late diagnosed neurodivergent person and all of the unlearning and changing of internal stories that goes along with that, as well as coming to terms with some of my health challenges and how that impacts working full time and just, coming to terms with things, I really realized that framing the Chicken Yogi as a wellness or mental health type entity, I guess, really didn't fit with my authentic self. I am somebody that has been hurt very badly by the Western medical system. I'm pretty much medically abandoned in terms of mental health. There were some really bad things that happened last fall in terms of misdiagnoses and ways of being dismissed. And the more that I took the psychology classes in college, and I did graduate with my degree in religious studies last December, but the more I took the psychology classes, the more I realized how mental health and wellness and psychology is really based on othering people. That there is this cis, white, heterosexual, neurotypical norm. And if you deviate that from any way, it's your fault and you are othered. And that led to, dealing with some things. As a trans person, I experienced some microaggressions in a class that was supposedly supposed to discuss diversity. Some of those aggressions actually were much more than micro and actually kind of violated the college's principles and really left a bad taste in my mouth, frankly, if this is how diversity is being taught within the psychology field. And I won't go into it because if you are a trans person or if you're non-binary, if you're if you're anywhere on the queer spectrum, honestly, it deals with things that we have to deal with on a daily basis, and I just don't want to rehash that. But I went through a whole bunch of stuff. Let's just say that. So the break I took really helped me to lean into my authentic self and lean into what I want to do. And the truth is, the fact that I am currently pursuing a master's degree in religious studies is not a fluke. And it's not settling either. There are some things about master's degrees and advanced graduate degrees and being able to practice psychology that are highly inaccessible to somebody like myself who, has a chronic illness, dynamic disability, and lives very rurally, and as well as being the sole provider for my household. You have to do a lot of work for no pay, and if you have a full-time job, that's pretty much impossible. So there's a lot of things that were inaccessible about the psychology aspect of it. And when I really started thinking about my relationship with spirituality and my relationship with religion, it was one of those situations, much like being late diagnosed neurodivergent, that once I had that awareness, I could look back in my life and see everything that happened, and I could realize that the signposts were there all along. And the same thing is true with my interest in spirituality and religion. Now, because religion and spirituality can be a very upsetting topic for people, I want to pause and let you know that my understanding and my experience and my focus with religion and spirituality is not based on any specific theology. And it is not based on trying to convert anybody or trying to, change anybody's beliefs. My experience is based on a cultural kind of why we think what we do, why we believe what we do, how we make sense of our world through religion, as well as the how did we get to here from there sort of situation. When you look at the history of, frankly, many religions or spiritual philosophies, they have changed a lot over the years. And some of that has to do with power dynamics. Some of that has to do with colonization. Some of that has to do with socioeconomic situations. But there's a lot of fluidity and just learning how our thoughts have changed, how we came to here from there. That's my interest. And when I talk about spirituality and religion, I'm talking about connection. I'm talking about connecting with yourself, whether you consider that your soul, your higher self, your intuition, or just your true authentic self. It's about connecting with yourself, and it's also about connecting with the wider world as well as other people. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. There was a wonderful line in one of the recent episodes here, Star Trek Discovery, and Burnham said, "Connection is a choice." And that really struck a chord with me. That connection is a choice. We talk about connecting with ourselves. We talk about connecting with other people, connecting with nature. And that is actually a choice that we can make. And as neurodivergent individuals and a neurodivergent person, being told that you can make a choice to do something sometimes can feel a little rough. Again, because of the way that our Western psychology and our Western medicine thinks about that. And so kind of where I'm coming to from this, and I know there's been a long lead up here, so I appreciate you hanging out with me. But where I'm coming into this is I turned to a friend of mine who also is neurodivergent. We tend to flock together. And I said, I'm seeing so many coaches and so many people out there talking about how to do more, be more productive, fit in the workplace, and maybe do so while dropping your masks. But for the most part, it's focused on how to shoehorn a neurodivergent brain into a neurotypical world. And sometimes it's disguised as some sort of being true to yourself. But a lot of the things that they're teaching, to be honest, are things that are coming at this both from a spiritual and a mental health standpoint, are things that are tied into that paradigm of othering. They're tied into the paradigm of there's something wrong with you because your brain doesn't work like this cis hetero neurotypical norm. And it really chafed with all that. I mean, it didn't feel right. And so I asked, who's out there helping neurodivergent, autistic, wherever you fall under that big neurodivergent umbrella, which is a huge umbrella, and a lot of us have more than one neurodivergence. But who is helping us make that connection with ourselves, with the universe, with other people on levels that work for us? Who is taking care of our spirituality? And I know a lot of people can think that, oh, they don't need religion, they don't need spirituality. But when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, part of that pinnacle of self-realization or self-actualization is understanding who you are, what your place is in the world, what you want to do, what your mission is, and understanding that spiritual connection or that connection with something bigger than yourself. And I really like that definition of spirituality, of connecting with something bigger than yourself, because when and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. When my spouse and I are out on a clear night and we're looking at the stars, he knows far more about astronomy than I do, but he loves pointing out the different stars, the different planets when you can see them. We have a telescope. Looking under the universe like that, or just seeing pictures from like the space station or from the telescopes, Hubble or James Webb, and realizing just the vast wonders that are in our universe. I mean, it's purely science. So, it's astronomy, it's physics, it's, pictures from telescopes. I'm not talking about anything spiritual in a conventional sense, and yet it is spiritual because there's a sense of transcendence there. Something bigger than ourselves, something that takes us outside of ourselves, reminds us that we're just on one small blue dot of a planet in this big vast universe, and there's a lot we don't know, and it's pretty amazing out there. Likewise, when I'm spending time with my horses, on one hand, you can look at them as pets, you can look at them as livestock, you can look at them as working animals. Mine are just pets. They're working, I guess, in the sense that they provide some therapy for me, but the fact that these creatures that weigh 1,000 pounds, they can hurt you. I've got some aches and pains that remind me that, I've been hurt by the horses over the years, but they can hurt you if you want. They don't have to stand there and let you hug on them or let you kiss them. And some of my horses are better about that than others. Some don't want that kind of attention, but to be in this relationship with these big animals and to feel their unconditional love and acceptance, that's transcendent to me. That's spiritual. And again, my personal goddess happens to be Epona, who is a horse goddess, and I happen to have a polytheistic worldview. But even if you set that aside, when listening to people talk about being with horses, Winston Churchill famously said, there's something about the outside of a horse that's good for the inside of a man. That creates a sense of transcendence, a sense of spirituality. And I don't think we talk about that enough. When you cuddle with your cat, when you have your dog flop down next to you, or you go for a walk or play in the park with your dog, there are these moments of connection. Going for a hike in the woods, or enjoying bird watching, or being a weather geek. There are these moments that tie a lot into our special interests. Horses are my special interests. Frankly, religion and spirituality is my special interest. When you can tie into your special interests like that and find that sense of transcendence and wonder without talking about organized religion. And so I guess in this podcast, I just want to reassure you that I am not going to talk much about organized religion. I would like to explore how different neurodivergent people see that, or how that works for them. But more importantly, I want to talk to people about how to create that spirituality, that transcendent connection that works for them, and how to create that in a way that's unique to them outside of the boundaries of traditional religion. Because again, much like with, the mental health, when you think about the organized religion or traditional religion, there's not a lot of room there sometimes for difference. There's not a lot of room there for people who are outside of the specific norm. One of the things I'm looking at this semester as it winds up in one of my classes is disability liberation in the New Testament. And there's some very great scholarship being done on that. But, there's also some things that when you read it are pretty damn ableist. and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel good as a disabled person. So I want to talk about, how to find that spirituality, or how to find your connection with religion in a way that works for you, with the beliefs that work for you, and that fit your worldview, that fit the way that you authentically are. So I'm going to wrap up here. I've been talking for about 15 minutes, but this is just kind of my, hey, I'm pivoting a little bit show. I hope that you stay with me. I hope that you continue to follow what I do. I recently revamped the Chicken Yogi website, so I encourage you to check it out at chickenyogi.com. I have a quiz there that basically helps you determine if you're in a dark night of the soul, which is a spiritual concept that I want to talk about more, because I feel like it ties in quite importantly and quite strongly with autistic burnout, with some of the things that we deal with as neurodivergent people. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you hopefully soon. Thank you for listening to the Chicken Yogi Show, hosted by the Chicken Yogi, Kit Kailstow. Kit's passion is creating neurodivergent and chronic illness liberation through a devotion to radical free-range wellness. We're not one-size-fits-all people, so why should your wellness be designed for everyone? Learn more at chickenyogi.com and subscribe to the newsletter while you're there for a free gift. Please follow the podcast at podcast.chickenyogi.com. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Music is Running with the Horses by Purple Planet Music. Their website is purple-planet.com. This show is copyright 2023. All rights reserved by Kit Kailstow and Chicken Yogi. Thank you for listening.